you how to prepare for your first role in games. You might have only caught the last part of that sentence because I think I was talking before it actually went live. But if not, just to give you the first part, welcome to how to prepare for your first role in games. So thanks you so much for signing up. We've got a fantastic panel of speakers today, and this is all for Games Careers Week. So us as Into Games, we've been working with Staffordshire University in London to put this panel together to tell you about what your first day might be like in the games industry, and to how you might prepare for your first role in terms of how you might get ready for your interview, what that process might look like, and just to give you a bit of a little bit of prep for your next steps potentially into the games industry, if this is the pathway that you'd like to take. So we've got some fantastic speakers that are going to be joining this panel today. I'm going to have a nice fireside chat. So nothing too intense about some of those first steps. So just to give you an idea of who's here today, we've got Kim Adcock, who's the founder of OPM Jobs. She's also the managing director. Kim grew OPM for a one-woman band in a loft conversion office on a borrowed chair to the successful internationally acclaimed company that it is today, being one of the largest games jobs recruiters in Europe. So very exciting. Have you still got that chair, Kim?
I have. I honestly have.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually bought by a previous employer who did the dirty on me. So I sit on that chair and I give it some of that every now and again. Makes me feel really good. But if it wasn't for that disaster, I wouldn't be here. So disaster is opportunity. That's
Yes.
the lesson. 23 years later, it's all looking good.
That's it. And we will have Emily Brown as well. Emily is a lead designer at Us2 Games and has worked in the games industry for around 15 years. Most recently, she worked with an amazing team at Us2 Games to launch Alba, a wildlife adventure, which looks amazing. I haven't played it yet, but it looks incredible. It's a really, really wonderful experience. Do you enjoy working on that?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, to be in lockdown and not be able to go out, but to work on a game about running around free outside with all the animals was a joy. Yeah.
Is it out now? Is it?
It is out in December, and it's coming out on console soon. So yeah, super exciting.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Cool. We've also got Gary Timmett. Gary's the education manager at the Association for British Esports and works primarily on the esports BTEC with Pearson, as well as other educational related projects. He's been involved with the British Esports Association since its pilot championships for schools and colleges 2 years ago. It was only 2 years ago. Wow, it feels like
longer. Time. It feels like longer. It might be a little bit longer, yes, but it's been a while since I joined the BEA. Yes.
Oh my God! It's testament to the speed at which esports has grown, isn't it? That it feels much longer than 2 years. So fantastic. And we've got Bradley Austin, who is the games provision manager, who some of you probably watching this will know, at Staffordshire, London. Hello, you're currently studying for a PhD in digital design. Add to your degrees in computer gameplay design and production, and a postgraduate certificate in education. I feel incredibly undereducated around you. I feel like you're multiple levels of education.
Well, there's a lot of years to go on that PhD, though, I tell you.
And finally, last but definitely not least, Joanna Greene, who is the head of CSR for Creative Assembly, a studio responsible for games like Total War and Alien Isolation. In her role, Joanna works with the majority of the studio's 800 plus employees to engage them in their ambassador program, so Creative Assembly's ambassador program, which sees staff volunteer educational programs around the country. How does it feel being in charge of probably the best games educational ambassador program going?
Well, I don't know if I'm CSR coordinator. So there's a team of us. There's my manager and myself, and then Helen, who works with the further and higher education. But it is super, super exciting to work on the project. It's very good. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. We'll probably ask kind of a few open questions and maybe a few kind of direct questions as we go. But I was wondering if, just to kind of kick things off, I was wondering if each of you could tell me about your first day at work, if you can remember. If you can remember that kind of distant memory a long time ago. What was your first day at work, and how did it make you feel? Joe, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. I think my first day, it was really exciting because obviously I came from a completely different background. My background's actually teaching. So I came from an education body, and then came into the games industry completely sort of not really knowing what to expect from that perspective. But it was really, really exciting because everyone was sort of, you got to meet your team, you got to meet other developers. At that point in time, I was working a lot on recruitment process as well, so meeting all the hiring managers, and yeah, everyone was really welcoming, very friendly. You then sort of had some HR inductions and some IT inductions, and just sort of got familiar with the studio, familiar with the tools that you were using, and yeah, got introduced to everything. It was 6 years ago now, so it was a little while ago, but that's what I remember. Meeting people.
Cool. Gary?
Yeah, so originally my background is games animation, so I'm an animator by trade, I guess you would say. And one of my first jobs was at a company called CodeSync in Sunderland. And I remember I was fresh out of university. I graduated from TZ University. And my first day, I live in a town called Darlington, so I had to get a train up to Sunderland, so through Newcastle to Sunderland. And the trains were cancelled that day, or there was something on the lines that went wrong. So I was sat on the train, ready to go, and it broke down and it didn't go. So I had to get off the train on a different train. And by this time, I was about an hour late. So I called up the office, and I was so scared. I was so nervous, just fresh out of university. And they put on buses to go up to Sunderland. And I sat next to this guy, and we got talking. And I said, it's my first day on the job today, and I'm late. It's like 2.5 hours. And his name was Chris McMath. So if he is, he might probably not listen, but if he's out there still, fantastic guy. And he said, I work there too. Don't worry about it. We'll both be late together. I can kind of cover your back. So I got there, and they were just lovely, lovely people. So understanding. It's not the first time trains break down, right? But I was so nervous, but they made me feel at home and very, very welcome. First day, met everybody, met the team, played the demo, kind of the build of a game called SHU, SHU. It's out now on all platforms. It was out a few years ago on all platforms. But yeah, a lovely, lovely atmosphere, and a great way to start our first day of finally in the games industry.
Oh, that's perfect. That's fantastic, because you kind of arrived with a friend.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So, like,
Friend
it
for
makes
life
everything
now.
much easier. Yeah, right. Oh, brilliant. Brad, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, I'm more into the teaching side of things than going into studios. But I used to teach at a college, South Thames College in London. It was where I also used to go to study games development. And my first day, I went in to cover for another lecturer, and I hadn't done my teaching qualification at this point. And I was, if anyone's worked in FE colleges, probably kind of gets this feel that sometimes you're just thrown into a situation and just kind of have to improvise. So I turned up, and my boss was my lecturer that I used to be head of when I was taught there. And he kind of just took me to the front of the class and kind of said, "Oh yeah, here's Brad. He's does a bunch of game stuff, but does stuff in games engines. You'll definitely learn a lot from him." And then kind of patted me on the shoulder, like, "Yeah, all right, over to you." And it just had this kind of class staring at me. No lesson plan, no anything. He was just like, "Okay, I'm going to do this." But it turned out, games is this subject because it's so creative, and the everyone who's involved is generally very passionate. You can sit down, you could just talk to a whole class of students about their games and jump into doing some design just with 5 minutes of chatting to people, because everyone is so raring to go and just make cool stuff. So it was a really creative but quite stressful experience.
Well, I hope people's watching this first day isn't as in the deep end as pushed into a room and get on with it. See you later. Here's your work. Goodbye. But yeah, that sounds terrifying. But probably learned a lot from that quite quickly. Sink or swim. Kim, I mean, I know we obviously heard about you in your chair. Was there anything? Was that your first day at work? I suppose technically, but maybe there was other jobs before that. Oh, Kim, you're on mute.
It's probably for the best. Yeah, my first day, I actually worked at Gem Distribution, so I haven't just done recruitment in games. I worked in distribution for a couple of years as well. And yeah, my first day there was crazy. I walked in and was introduced to the Virgin, because Virgin used to be in games. People might not remember that. Virgin Interactive were huge back in the day, and I was introduced straight away to the account manager from Virgin, and told that I had them and Ocean and Interplay, or Bizarre Love Triangle as they were called back then. We could get away with that stuff back in the 90s. And I was asked how many units I wanted of Resident Evil. Firstly, what's a unit? So yeah, it was a baptism of fire, I think you could safely say. But same, all the people there were super supportive. I knew some of them already from going to from games industry events, and yeah, and they were terrific. I've made some friends there that I'm still friends with now, even though they've moved continents. So yeah, first days can be nerve-wracking, and you might not even talk the same language, but it all worked out fine.
Yeah, in the end, eventually.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Emily, how about you?
Oh, yeah. My first day, it was a very long time ago, it feels now. I'd been looking for a job and interviewing for about a year. And finally, I got a job, and I was, it was Sony Computer Entertainment in London. So junior designer role. Super excited. I got there an hour early. I was commuting from Brighton to London. I'm like, I'm going to be early. I was sitting in the lobby for about an hour before my manager came. And I can remember that feeling of getting in a lift. I get my little pass, and I'm going to get my photo taken, but I've got a temporary pass. I'm allowed in the building. Getting in a lift and my heart just going dum, 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 dum. Getting out of the floor, and it's just like, oh, it's a bunch of people from some desks, and introduced to my team, and here's your stuff. And then it was just a whirlwind of making stuff, like meeting cool people, and lots of fun had.
So, I mean, that's it. I mean, what did, in terms of, so your first day in the game studio, did you have expectations before you got there? And if you did, what differed from actually, the reality of working in the studio on that first day?
I don't think I really knew what to expect. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect. So I just rocked up like, all right, let's do something. And it was concepting time. It was a new project starting off. The team had worked on something previously. So it was just like, well, play the stuff we've made and have a think about what we can make next. And we'll try pitch some things. So it was all sort of very much more open and unstructured than I had expected at that time. And there was lots of space for everyone's ideas. There wasn't just everyone do this now. Yeah, it felt like there was much more back and forth than maybe I expected.
Yeah, and Gary, how about you? You had your first day at CoatSync. Did it differ in any way from what you'd gone through an educational process? You'd graduated, you've been taught, a certain way of making games. Did that, when you actually got into the studio, was that just totally different from what you expected, or how did that work out?
Yeah, it was, but not in a bad way. I mean, I think so. I've taught in FE and HE and now, or prior these past few years. But I think coming as a learner and a student into your first role was very different doing the job, because I was taught in 3ds Maya. Unity, never touched Unity before. I was taught in Unreal, and the first day on the job, it's not my first day there, but I guess the first day when it's like, okay, you're going to make something now, you're going to animate. So I was like, oh, I know Maya, I've studied and I've tried and I've read tutorials, and I know more than what I thought I would know. And then they said, we're not using Maya, we're animating in Unity. And I'd never touched Unity before in my entire life. I'd never done it, and I was so nervous, so scared I was going to break the build, not know how to animate. And it was, and it kind of falls back to them just kind of, in the nicest way possible, just being there for you with any questions, asking the team around you, the other animators, the people who were making the programmers. And it was just a fantastic experience in that case. But it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. There was a park literally opposite where CoatSync was based, or is based, called Barnes Park. So we used to go out on lunchtime, throw frisbees, play football, just have social time with the team, and then back to work, right? But as the work goes, no, I didn't touch Maya until maybe 2 or 3 games in, developing 2 or 3 games in. But that wasn't a bad thing, because I feel you learn so much more on the job. I think that's the case with a lot of things, right? Where you actually you're in the space, you're doing it full time. You've got your friends around you or your colleagues around you as well, and they're helping you along the way. And it's very, very surprising how efficient you become at a lot of things very, very quickly. So yeah, that's kind of where I would kind of settle on that.
Yeah, and Joe, so obviously you guys over at Crypt Assembly get a massive influx of staff.
Yes.
all the time, being one of the UK's biggest studios.
Yes.
What's set up for new people when they come in? How does that first day look at a studio like Creative Assembly?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously at the moment it looks very different from what it would look like when we were actually in the studio, because while we're still obviously currently remote, but so at the moment you get a lot of sort of a Teams call and welcome that way. But yeah, the first day, like if we were in out of lockdown, we would you'd come into the studio. You'd normally have your PC set up in front of you and a few sort of welcome swag bags ready to go, sort of a hoodie and a t-shirt and a few other niceties. So I think that always makes you feel sort of a little bit more like part of everything that's going on. And then you would meet your manager or whoever's going to lead, and they'd probably introduce you to members of your team who you'll be working with. And that might not necessarily just be your discipline. It might be sort of that you're working with a programmer and a designer, and there'll be other people that you meet throughout that process. And then often you also do sort of a tour around the studio as well to sort of become a bit familiar, because it is sort of like just like it is when you're at school or when you're at university and you've got to find your way around a large building or campus. We're now, when we go back, we'll be in 3 different sites across Horsham. So being able to even know where they are in the town centre is going to be a fun game. So just having that sort of orientation. And then part of that day, you'll also meet with HR and have a conversation with them as well. And also either that day or that week, IT. So you get to meet a few different people throughout the week as you start on your first day. And then it would be a case of sort of orientating yourself, not just with location, but also the software and starting to log into your computer, getting all of your keys and actually finally getting to sit down and maybe actually start the day like with sort of a start, wow, what am I actually working on? And I think that bit must be a very big momentous occasion.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think obviously before you get to that first day, you have to get the job, right?
Yes.
So, I think Kim, you're at the coalface when it comes to like employers and employees, obviously that want to get work. What are the qualities that I guess that you see across successful junior candidates? So you've seen so many go through. Are there any kind of qualities across them that you think are needed to get a role?
I would say true passion for what they do. The creative process, technical process, the whole process around games, even the marketing, managing communities. I know there's a lot of us now, but we still have a different vibe to other industries. And seeing the passion that somebody's got, even in recruitment, I now have people who, one of my guys has got over 2,000 games and he's played them all. So that passion. Our junior, we've just hired another junior, actually, somebody accepted yesterday, and he'd actually been working in events in games and he'd volunteered for stuff. So I think it's not just what's on the CV, it's the cultural stuff, it's the extra stuff. I know one of the questions was, what else can I do? What should I show? Everything. If you're doing stuff outside of your uni work and outside of what you have to do, and this is what you want to do, then, well, they say, if you do what you love for a living, you never work a day in your life. And it's very true. If you've got that kind of keenness in somebody who comes for interview compared to somebody who, I can remember ringing somebody once and she asked me again what we did because she'd applied for 3 jobs and she couldn't remember who we were. The interview ended at that point. So, whereas somebody else who's looked at us, knew what the dogs' names were, was a massive fan fan of one of the clients they'd worked out we were hiring for, that kind of thing. As an employer, you need to know that they're going to come in and want to turn up every day and want to really put their heart and soul into it, especially, you know, if you're going to be creative, you know. And I think Emily's experience of going in and just play what we've done and see what you do with it. Wow. I mean, there's people out there who give their right arm for that, probably watching this webinar now. So, you know, that's huge at the moment. Culture, particularly as you've got to be remote, and I'm sure the employers in the room will talk about this. Induction is difficult. You know, it is not the same as it used to be. So if you know you've got somebody you can trust that is so engaged with what you're doing, that's going to make a huge difference. So having that without sounding like it, you know, like you're only there because you love playing games, you've got to be a fan of what you do and love it, and that needs to come across.
Fantastic. And actually, I mean, what it might be worth kind of just talking about like the role of recruitment agencies in the hiring process. Like because there'll be people watching this that be like, what do recruiters do? Yeah. And how does that,
what do we
how
charge
does that work?
you?
Well, not, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, probably as well. But like, what's from the employee's perspective? They've just graduated.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know whether to employ. You know, they see job roles on job boards. They see job roles on studio websites, and then they see recruiters in the mix. What is that landscape about? How do you navigate that?
I think the difference with us, because obviously we field applications on behalf of our clients. That's what they pay us for. So, but the other good thing is that we're talking to all the employers. So we're not just talking to one. I mean, we work with the people in the room, which is great. So, but I think the value that we bring, we don't charge candidates. It's illegal to do that in this country unless you're a performance artist. The client pays the fee. So that also explains why we have to field a lot of the applicants, because you have got to be the best of the best and be absolutely right for that job. We don't have magic wands. You know, you've got to be really right for that role, and you've got to be what they're asking for us to put you forward. So some of that is kind of out of our control. However, bringing out the best in you is absolutely what we have to do. So our job is to introduce people we know the client is going to like, and not just because of their technical or creative ability, or, you know, sales ability or marketing ability, whatever ability they have, but also that they're going to fit culturally. They're going to be, you know, we get people turned down because it wasn't the right fit, and that's so intangible. But walking into a room of people, you either get on with them or you don't. So, you know, that's very much, if we talk to hiring managers, that's absolutely golden for us. So our role is, we will gather your CV, we'll gather your demo, we'll give you advice on your demo, we'll make sure it fits for the client we're sending you for, and as a generic demo for us to send out as well, and absolutely include personal portfolios, because they count a lot, and then we send that to the client on your behalf, and then we literally manage the whole process, all of the interviews. We've actually got a set process at OPM called the Teamship Rules, and we started writing that in 2001, and we evolve it every Tuesday afternoon, where we literally start at the beginning and we train on it with the whole team every single week. When we get to the end of it, we retrain on our terms, and then we start again on the Teamship Rules. So we have a set structure for handling interviews. So how we prepare you for an interview, how we prepare the client for an interview, how we then debrief with both of you, how we feed that back. So yes, obviously the content of that will be dictated by what happens, but the fact that there is a structure behind it means that we won't miss anything. So if at any point we discover maybe this isn't the role for you, or maybe this isn't the candidate for the client, we will, you know, advise on that. And if we think you're right, we're going to fight your corner every step of the way, because our job is to iron out the creases before they come wrinkles, and to make sure that when you walk in on that first day, like Emily did, and I'm picturing that now, that was really evocative, so I can see why you're a game designer, that really brought me images, that you walk in and they're smiling and they're reflecting your smile, so you're all smiling as you walk in. So we'll negotiate your salary, your package, any other benefits and bells and whistles that are available. We'll do all of that. We can't go and get you the top salary if you're not worth it. Equally, if we think you're worth more than you're telling us, then, you know, we'll go and make sure that happens. But it's got to be a fair process. And the interesting thing is, you know, recruiters, we can't force anybody to do anything. Can't force anything. We can't make a client hire you. We can't make you take a job that you don't want. So a big part of our process is just checking in during that process, making sure everybody still feels the way they did. Every stage will make you feel differently. I mean, I've interviewed one of the people who's been with me 14 years, visibly shook in his first interview. He's registered blind. He didn't know how I'd respond. He'd done the job for 2.5 years. Second interview, different person, dry sense of humour you'll ever come across, definitely going to be a fit. So, we have to make sure everybody gets enough chances as well, because, as Gary was saying, you can mess up even on your first day, even once you got the job. Yeah, mistakes can still be made. If a broken down train, unless you can drive it or push it along, you didn't stand a chance. But I love, the fact is you are going to work for other human beings who have all been where you are that day. So they've all had a first day, probably several, and they will know how you're feeling. So, inductions, I think, have had to adapt, obviously, because of being remote. We're certainly experiencing that. I think what we're finding is it's the social side people miss. So it is definitely the being part of a team that seems to be a big driver in this industry. If you're with a team that you get on with, like they're going and playing football at lunchtime, that sort of thing, our office, not that we've been in it for a year, is near a Sainsbury's. So, different friendships would form depending on who was walking to Sainsbury's that day. So, it was, I hope that answers the question. I could go on all day. You probably need me again.
No. There was a ton of really fantastic advice there, and I guess when people's portfolios are ready, they should then go to recruiter as part of a range of different things. So as part of applying on their own and go to recruiter. What does that? And I know this is a broad question because there's different kinds of portfolios for different kinds of job roles. But and this might be open to any of you guys as well. So Gary, Emily, I know you both obviously had portfolios in your career as well, and probably seen lots of other portfolios. What does a good portfolio look like? What should it contain before it gets to Kim and a recruitment agency, or before it gets to you as a studio to see that role? What should a good portfolio look like? Open question.
Yeah. I think, from our perspective, we see hundreds. Everyone else sees hundreds. It's got to grab you in the first few seconds. It's got to be good. So open with your strongest pieces. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I would actually add with the portfolio. I think it's obviously sort of like a bit of a mantra, but it is definitely with a portfolio, quality over quantity. So I think it's really, really important to only put your best pieces of work in there. So if there's a piece that you're not happy with, then the likelihood is that the hiring manager is also not going to be happy with that. And that can let you down sort of thing when actually all of your other pieces are really stunning. So make sure that with your portfolio, you put the pieces that you're happy with. You can put in anything that you've done at university or on your studies, and also make sure that your personal pieces are there. But also something else that we find is really, really important is make sure that your portfolio is kind of the work that you want to be doing when you're applying, because what we often find is sort of, obviously, if we're looking at, obviously our total war games are realistic pieces, and if we're looking at our portfolio which has a lot of maybe anime or cartoon sort of stylized pieces, it's not going to be relevant to the game that we're working on. So even though we might think, oh, that's incredible, we might also think, well, that's where you might be really good at a different place sort of thing, because that's what you want to be doing. So if you want to work with realistic artwork or realism, I'm using art as an example, then make sure that your portfolio incorporates that and includes that. That's not to say not to put other pieces in, but make sure that it does include those sort of pieces in it. They would be my two things: quality over quantity, and make sure that the style is similar to where you want to work or what games you want to work on.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well before Emily jumps in is on that note as well, is it's dependent on the company you're applying for, right? Let's say we're applying for an indie company. I'll speak as an animator. You might be working on sorry, my dog just barked. I do apologize if it barks again. You might be working on third-person, first-person cinematics, rigging, animating in Unity, animating in Unreal, in Maya. So it's kind of like a jack of all trade, right? But if you're applying to like Creative Assembly, for example, or Ubisoft or Riot, they're very much specific roles. So you kind of customize your portfolio dependent on the job role as well. So if you are going to be a cutscene animator, show your cutscene animation, show your camera work, how it moves. If you are going to be a character animator, just do characters. Keep out there your particle effects and anything else like that as well. If it's going to be a first person shooter, kind of like, let's say we're going to go for Valorant or Overwatch, they're the type of animations you would show off to show that you're capable of doing the job role that you're going for as well.
Absolutely.
I guess from the design perspective, I think I'm looking for the story. Like it's interesting. Like if you have a playable, cool, I can play it. Like if there's a link to your online portfolio, I can play a game. But I think for me, I want to know, like, okay, how many people did you work with to do this, and what kind of issues did you have? Like, what's sort of were the challenges of making this kind of game? And I want to see people being analytical about what they're creating, and I think those explanations add a bit more understanding to, like, what part did you play in the creation? Did you come up with the concept, or did you work together and someone else came with a concept and you built on it? And all those interpersonal things that happen in project making, or even if you're building a project on your own, there's a journey in that you can tell through your portfolio that you can't necessarily tell in a CV or just a list of things that you've done.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely making sure that you've got sort of like the iterations in place, isn't it, with design, and making sure that you can actually show, and it's okay to go, oh, I made a mistake here, or that wasn't quite right, but this is how I fixed it. And that's really important to be able to explain that and show, because that's probably what you're going to be doing most days, is trying to fix a problem.
Definitely.
Brad, is there much of that kind of work going on at Staffordshire London? Is there, in terms of getting students ready for the end, when they're going to get ready? Do they do some of that portfolio work with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's really nice to hear, from the industry, exactly the sorts of things we've been doing. So iterative design is something that we do a lot, and the students have to, as part of their assessments, post up iterative documentation for any design work they're doing. So even through their assignments, for example, if they were going for a design position, they would have iterative design documents showing progress on, it could be theoretical, or it could actually be practical implementation of, say, gameplay mechanics or something like that. They would have documentation for that. We also have, for example, in the final year, everyone takes a module called Project Portfolio, where, as Gary said, you specialize and find you need to show a portfolio piece which is aimed at the job position that you're going for, right? So that's basically an entire module where we basically sit down and kind of almost design an assignment with you. And you say, right, what job role do you imagine going for, or what are you aiming for at the end of this year? If are you doing UI and UX design? Cool, let's design a project for you based around a UI UX design. And then that's completed and put on their portfolio. So yeah, it's exactly as everyone said, really. Specializing, having projects that are absolutely targeted towards your position. And the students watching this right now, don't worry if you don't know what that is just yet, because if you're just kind of first year of university or whatever, you might not have even thought about your specialism just yet. But as you go through year on year, you'll start to find where you sit job-wise. Yeah.
And Gary's very kindly been talking about games with us for a while, but actually, you're here representing esports. And I guess I'm interested, we're talking about portfolios here. That's not really necessary. Well, is that relevant for a role in esports? Or like, how does the games industry and esports industry differ, and what are the kind of role opportunities that are available in esports? I guess because they're kind of lumped together a lot of the time, but actually they seem to be, they're quite different and very and separate and have their own nuances. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear about that.
No, of course, and they are very, very different, but also the same, which is very stupid of me to say, right? And just I could talk about the games industry forever. It's been my passion growing up, and I've worked in the industry. I've taught games, animation, visual effects, and now I'm in the esports side of things. So I'm more than happy to talk about everything and anything for as long as possible with everyone. But I think with esports, you're playing the games, right? It comes down to the publishers are the kind of they're the kind of the big shot callers at the top. You can't do anything without the published permission, right? Depending on the game. But it is a game fundamentally, right? Whether it's designed to be an esports or it's not designed to be an esports. The thing with esports is the word esports, the title, it catches everybody off guard, right? It's playing games professionally, but it's just like sport, or it's just like games. You are at the top of your game if you are at the top of your game, and that's solely down to you, whether you're an animator, whether you're a professional gamer, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you have your own recruitment agency, whether you're lead animator. It's all on your passion and your goal for where you want to take this. The difference with esports is it's the ecosystem. It now has everything in it that sport would have. So if you take sport as the banner and esport as the banner, everything that falls underneath that umbrella is a job role. It's not just about gaming. It's just about being a professional or having an organization. You have job roles in there to do with legal, legislation, social, health and well-being, psychology, health and nutrition. You have shoutcaster, referee, analyst, coach. You start your own business, entrepreneurship, branding, social marketing. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And with the BTEC that we created with Pearson, that's what it's all about. It's about the transferable skills. Esports, like games, is just the title. It's the hook that brings in the passionate people, which then you teach them the transferable skills moving forward, regardless of the role. So the BTEC has 20 units in it that ranges from everything I said there. And it's up to the individual, like Kim said, to find their passion at what they want to do. The top 1% will become the best of the best and make a lot of money as a professional, but not everybody can do that. But not everybody's passion is in that. My passion isn't in being a professional. It's educating organizations and individuals and teaching and the games industry. Animation is one of my favorite things in the entire world, whether it's 3D, 2D, literally like movie animation, show animation, anime. Like, I love it all. I love just animation in general. But that's the whole point of it. It's finding your passion for what you want, whether it's esports or not. So the crossovers are there, of course, yeah, but esports is a much broader kind of ecosystem that incorporates everything, and we're just learning that now.
And is there a particular area in esports that's requiring people more than other areas? You know, like for games, it's, I don't know, it might be C++ programmers that are, you know, desperately needed by the industry. You know, is there anywhere that people should be kind of going, focusing their time on more than anywhere else?
If I had to say, and again, this is just my opinion, it's not gospel, so please don't say. Gary said that this is the place to be, because it's not that at all. Every role is needed, because that role then fills a job, which then builds the ecosystem. But what we're finding is kind of business side of things, entrepreneurship, branding is the big thing at the moment. A lot of individuals, and it's the same within the games industry, want their own company or have this great idea for a game, or they've written this beautiful script, but they don't know how to present it to a business or to people to be like, this is how much money I want, this is what I want to do, this is where we can go, this is my brand, this is what it stands for, this is who I am. They're like, I've got an idea, but now where do I take it? And this is what we're seeing at the moment is lots of startup companies, but they don't know how to market themselves. So that type of role is what the industry is looking for at the moment. Events organization is fantastic, tournaments, and anything along them lines. However, the whole ecosystem is crying out for employees as well. Same as the games. There's certain roles that kind of take priority. There's certain roles that are niche, like shoutcasting and referees. Yes, it is there elsewhere, like broadcasting in traditional media, but I kind of having a play-by-play black and white color caster is kind of like, it's very niche. But if you've got the gift of the gab and you've got the silver tongue, you kind of take your route down that way, right? So there's a lot of roles to go through, but there's certain ones that kind of you should choose. But only if one thing I will say, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling, is don't choose something because it's needed. And if you don't like it and you choose a job because you know you're going to get you've got a high chance of getting a job, but you hate your job for 5, 6, 7 months, 2, 3 years, then don't do it. It's not worth it, because you're going to be miserable and you're going to wish you just continued and kind of worked on the role that you want.
And the same for studying as well. Like, don't pick any kind of degree or module to study purely because you think there's a job in it if you're not going to enjoy that module, because it's the passion of studying that if you don't enjoy studying it, then you're not going to enjoy the job afterwards. So
So I was going to say, like, it echoes what Kim sort of said right at the very beginning, and like, actually what drives the industry is the passion behind it. So actually if it's the passion that drives it, if you're not doing something that you enjoy, then you're not going to have that passion. So it's better to stick with what you really want to do and succeed in that, because that will really shine through in any application that you've got anyway.
Yeah, I just agree with that as well. And there's also a misconception we realised when we were hiring for our own internal roles, that if we put in our adverts that we wanted somebody who was into games, we got less female applicants. So even though it's useful for the resourcer roles, particularly because if you're going through people on LinkedIn and you recognise the games or the studios they're working for, clearly that's an advantage. But, you know, I have, you know, one of my top 3 consultants can't play games at all. I can't. I think I was born with thumbs that aren't opposable. I've finished one game in my life called Lost Ember, and it's ruined me for all other games because I loved it so much. I like mobile games because they're easy and nobody can see me. So, you know, there are misconceptions about who you're supposed to be to fit into this industry. But as Gary said, if you're going to the right company, you'll fit anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to reassure people that they might have ideas about what they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be, and in this world of social media and that kind of pressure, you know, it can be scary to put yourself out there. I for years hid the fact I couldn't play games until I actually got asked while I was public speaking for Yuki what was my favourite game, and I had to fess up. It was a dark day, but nobody judged me, thank God. So, and now I have a gaming laptop, so anything could happen. So it's taken 28 years, it's fine. But yeah, so don't worry about misconceptions. If you find the people that are right for you, you'll know.
If it's
Fantastic.
okay, can I just touch on a point Kira actually said there, with the job descriptions themselves? It's actually, like, obviously the job descriptions are what the company is looking for. So what often happens is you'll go through every single point and go, have I got that? Have I got that? Have I got that? Yes, you need some of those things, or most of those things, and yes, you want to show as much of that as you can. But don't be put off applying just because you don't get one or two of those, hit one or two of those marks. You've still got to go for it and try. Make sure that in your CV, you've put all of, you can evidence as much of the different points that you can, and then use the covering letter to show transferable skills and how you might, don't obviously explicitly write, I cannot do this, but instead show something else that you can do that will really sell yourself forward and be an additional point that they might not have thought of, that would kind of counteract the fact that, like, the hidden bit is that you can't do that point. So just make sure that you do still go for that job that you want. If you think that you're, like, again, don't be unrealistic and go, oh, I'm coming straight out of university, I'm going to apply for the director role, because that's never going to happen. But make sure, so be realistic in that sense, but don't sort of take those points as gospel and then not apply for the job. That would be something I
just wanted to plus one that, because the reason I got my first job, like, I was convinced I would never get that job. I'm like, I'm not going to apply for that. So they're never going to call me back. And it was like the night before the deadline. I was like, whatever, I'll just send it in. And I got an interview, and I got a second interview, and I got a job. And when I read that list, I was like, I can't do those things. I've never done that. But they saw something, and we had a chat, and I was able to explain how I thought about games, and that made all the difference. Like, if you don't apply, you can't get the job.
This is true. If you want to win the lottery, you have to buy the ticket, right? Yeah, I think we tell people that about their CVs, because we see other recruiters, not in this industry, I hasten to add, but they edit people's CVs and they fit it into a format and chop things off. I've received them, and you miss who the person is. And one of the first sections I look at is interests and hobbies. And if games is in there, or they're a massive film buff, or, you know, they're into anime or something like that, that's always going to pique my interest. And I think when we're hiring for people that are going to fit, that can be really interesting. You know, if you just never know. I mean, there's a very famous football game where they can only hire people who are massively into football, because they all are. So even if you were phenomenal at the job, but you weren't into the sport, you just wouldn't work out. You'd be miserable. And, you know, you might be able to do the job, but you would hate working there. So yeah, that you never know, do you, Emily, what you might see in somebody's CV that might not be in the job spec, and you go, oh, hang on a minute, that will fit really nicely. So yeah, I think that's really good advice.
That's fantastic, and I think we'll go to some Q&A questions now before we wrap up. I know there's some questions coming in from Discord, but just to say that I think most of our panelists will be on Discord after this for a little bit of time, and so if I don't answer your question now, you'll probably get it replied to directly through Discord. So just these are some questions actually submitted to us from Staffordshire London students. So we've got a question from Zach. So my portfolio is mostly university assignment work. Is this okay when applying for jobs, or should I also put group projects in my portfolio?
I can start, and then somebody else feel free to come in. I would say that it's absolutely fine to put group projects in, as long as when you put your group projects in, you say explicitly your part. So don't take credit for anything that anybody else has done. Say, this is the bit that I did as part of this group project. But absolutely do put them in. Do put any personal work that you've done in as well, because it does show that you go above and beyond. But if all of the work that you've done is through university, do add in those group projects, add in the other things that you've got, absolutely.
I'm on mute there. Thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah, can I just add to that? We did actually once send some demo work to a company in London, and the demo work had actually been done by the interviewer who received the demo.
Oh gosh, definitely do not want that.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, exactly. Yeah, don't want that to ever happen again.
Oh dear. Okay, so this one's actually probably for Emily. So how many games would a designer at a studio be working on at once? Do you ever get bored of playing the same game for years at once while developing it?
Okay, so in my experience, I've worked on one game at a time, because that's what my brain can cope with. It depends on the role you've got. So there are people who do user research, and you might work multiple projects, evaluating things and giving feedback. But from my design perspective, like one at a time. You do spend a long time with that game, and it's never boring because you're always finding something. Like it might be a bug you have to fix, or you get someone to play it and you're like, oh, okay, we could make this a bit better. You're always like pushing for it to be better. And it's never like, you could probably never play it like a person playing it for the first time, but there's pleasure in making it better. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
I did actually, one of the designers here did say that sort of it is the fact that the game's constantly changing while you're making it as well. So it's not like you're playing the same game, but you're not playing the same game, because there's always things being added. There's always things that are changing, different sort of mechanics will be added, or different assets or things like that. So yes, you might be playing the same game, but you might be playing one room over and over again to find the different problems and the different things. And then this person in particular really thinks that actually it's quite cool to play the game like a normal player at the end when you actually get the finished project, because you can see it just before you get to do it just before the players do, and actually you get a different perspective just at that point.
The whole game coming together feels completely different to the journey to that point, with like new features coming in, so it allows you to make new content. And yeah, that final moment where you just sit back and you play it as a game is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think we've only heard normally it's one game at a time. Some of the mobile games you can end up working on two, just because they're a lot shorter, so they can be a crossover into the next one, or maybe be working on a prototype for the next one. But that's the most. So you do get to focus on one thing.
I would actually say it does depend a little bit on the role that you're in, because like our audio team, for example, they work across all of our Total War games all at the same time. So they might be working on multiple games, and other teams like that's just sort of like the ones. So maybe the designers would be working on the one specific game, but then maybe sort of like the audio team or the QA team or any of the other teams, sort of thing, like technical artists, technical animators. They might be supporting several games at once. I'm trying to think. There's probably other roles as well, but they're the ones that spring to mind straight away.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. And this one's from Carlos. What should I be doing as well as my university work so I'm ready to get a game design job?
I think it's a tricky question, that one, right? Because like, what do you mean about what should you be doing? What for the job role for yourself? Like, it's dependent on the role you want or the career you want. It's highly changeable for each person. And like Joanna said, like, it depends on the role. So designers' roles are very specific to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, I'm not a designer, are very specific to that one job, that one game, right? Because that's the game that's always changing. So for me as an animator, it doesn't matter what I'm animating for what game. All I need to know is the fundamentals of how the character acts, what they're going through, or even if it's just a background, if it's bricks falling or a flower blooming, that doesn't change from game to game, right? So what I'd put in my portfolio or what I'd work on would be highly different depending on the job. But also it goes back to what Kim said about passion. It's about what you want to do and how you want to do it and how you want to come across. If you want to work on a realism game or stylized or cell shaded or kind of orthographic view or anything, it all depends on the role you're going for. And what I do want to say, and I guess now is a good time to say, is don't be afraid to fail. I think in our industry, people strive for perfection instantly, and any form of criticism is taken negatively, where I love constructive criticism. As an animator, I do something, but it doesn't mean that because I'm doing it, it's the best, or my finished project is best. Emily and Joanna come with me and say, Gary, that's garbage. Change this. It has to change. And I can't take that personally. It's not a reflection of my work. It's a reflection of the animation for the game, right? So you have to be able to fail and be told, that's not right. We need to redo it again, start again. We need to change it for this game. But that might not even go into a game. I might have done all this work from this beautiful run cycle, and it's like, that bit's not going in the game no more. We need to sneak cycle because it's not part of this level. So you see, it depends on how you want to go about it, right? So that's my advice.
One thing that I would add with sort of like things that you can do if you want to do things outside of your university course is get involved with the industry and get involved with gaming. So whether that's like taking part in game jams or whether it's taking part in our beta tests or anything like that. Often larger games are sort of calling out for testers and people to practice on the game and give feedback before the game's actually released. So keep your eye out for that sort of thing to join in with, and also game jams, and just in the community in general, sort of be present in forums, be present on different things, sort of asking and learning about sort of how things work. So being at events like this, that sort of thing, just being able to sort of get a good feeling and get a vibe, that kind of helps, and it would show through when you're talking in an interview as well.
Yeah, I think connecting with people on LinkedIn is the place to be discovered. So, make sure that your profile is discoverable. But if you find people, if what Emily does is what presses your buttons, go and link with her. Don't be scared of her. She's a human. She's been where you are, scared of going for her first job, and now look where she is. So, go and connect with them. Don't stalk them. That's bad. But do connect with them and just follow their posts and see what they put out there. And I think that's just so easy to do, and people really underestimate it, and they're scared to approach the people that are doing the job that actually one day you could be doing yourself. And I feel there's I think for most of us in this industry, the giving back. I mentor people even on Facebook. They pop up in my messenger and I'm like, yeah, sure, if I can give it to you for free, I'll do it. It's fine, I'm here. So there's a lot of us out there, and there's a lot who would do more but might not be invited. So don't be scared of following your heroes, because they are just they're just bipedal like you, most of them. So don't be scared of following the people that you love their work and that they do what you'd like to do, because you can learn a lot just from being on their media.
Yeah, and just on that note, Kim, as well, and it starts at university and college. You network with the people around you, because I've got friends now who and I'm not being that name dropping person, but work at like CD Projekt Red and Riot and at Blizzard, and they're generally friends. We don't talk about work business and what games they're working on, but you're networking with the people around you. And I think one of my lecturers first said, and so going back to my first year at uni, one of the first lectures is look around. These are the people you'd be competing with jobs with. And whilst that's true, it's not a very nice statement, because you put up barriers and walls, and you keep them at a distance, and you shouldn't. These are your friends, and these people you're going to be working with, hopefully one day, and connecting with, and they can help you with jobs in the future. You can help them. Always network with the people around you, and then network on the wider level, like Kim said. Sorry, I just wanted to add that. Emily, I'd seen you wanted to talk. Sorry.
No, that's exactly right. I just wanted to say, like, connect with people. That's like all the people in the industry are just people knocking about. They go to events, they do speaking things, but they have an email address, they have a LinkedIn. And that people around you think, Gary, I totally agree. Like, these are the people who are going to be in the industry when you are. And those are vital connections just for learning as much as, and having companions when you're struggling or,
Equally, never burn a bridge. I'll just leave that there, because you will meet them somewhere else. Somebody will one day ask them for a reference. Just always bear that in mind.
Even people who were working below you at the time.
Remember
100%. Everybody's on the pathway, and you should,
absolutely,
be nice to everyone, as much as possible.
As much as possible,
as much as allows.
Let's not go there.
So I was going to wrap up, and just if everyone could just give one last final piece of advice for somebody that's just about to embark out onto their role in games. I think a lot of you have just kind of said stuff here, but like Gary, what last thing?
Yes, no, of course. Is it's okay not to know what you want to do. And what I mean by that is since my first ever game and console was the SNES, and it was Zelda: A Link to the Past. And I remember it fondly. My dad bought me for Christmas. And since then, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But now I don't work in the games industry. I'm not an animator anymore. I still dabble. I still do consultancy work, but I work in esports. I educate FE and HE and the youth and organizations. I'm working with people from around the world I didn't think I'd ever meet, and you guys today. And even though I had my heart set on one role, I'm so happy in the role I am now. And it's okay for to change, regardless of your job role now or what you're studying at university. It will change, and that's okay, as long as you find, again, what we've said, your passion, your joy, your love in life. Then it's all worth it, regardless of where you kind of end up.
Awesome. Emily?
I think something Kim said earlier, I apologize if it was someone else who said it, really resonated for me. It's sometimes gaming is portrayed a certain way. For example, like, everyone in gaming is really into anime or Japanese culture or certain kinds of movies, and I don't think that's right. I think sometimes on the face of it, it might look like you don't fit, but gaming is incredibly broad. Like, it's on multiple platforms. It's for millions of different types of people, and there are so many different kinds of games out there. Like, I'm a mother of two. I don't play AAA games. I admit this, and I'm terrified of admitting it. I like watching other people play. I have great fun playing for a bit, but it's not for me. Like, I like emotional games or adventures where I get a story and I engage with characters. And, I played Mass Effect because I wanted to know what the backstory of that character was, not because I wanted to kill an entire planet of people. And that's okay. That's where I'm coming from in my gaming experience. And you can find a place in the games industry, whatever your background or your pleasures or your interests. And that's what I would say.
Lovely. Thank you. Joe?
I was too engrossed in listening there. I was like, no, I do. I think the same. I think it is just, don't be afraid to put your CV out there. Don't be afraid to actually just go for it and give it a go. Look out for the junior at the stage. If you're at the stage where you're at university looking for your new roles, like look for the junior roles, look for the trainee roles, look for those sort of roles, and just read around them. And even if you're at the stage where actually you're sort of first year or second year, start looking at the roles, because you'll start seeing the job applications and the job descriptions now, and you can go, oh, they're going to be looking for that. How can I achieve that in the next couple of years, so that when I'm actually applying for a job, what can I can actually say that I've already done it. So do start looking at them, and yeah, just don't be afraid to just go for it and apply for your roles.
Awesome. Brad?
Nice. Oh man, everyone's got amazing stuff. I mean, kind of, yeah, okay. So a few things. If you're at uni and you're doing your assignments take up most of your brain capacity, right? There's all this extra stuff we're saying that you need to do. Start networking, go to events, go on LinkedIn. And that can be really hard to fit into all that other stuff that's already going on. And that's also completely normal. And being able to do that is a skill as much as learning 3D Studio Max or Maya, right? Learning to kind of multitask and do all that connecting and networking alongside all the practical assignment bits as well. So I guess don't forget how important the other stuff is. Yes, the university assignments and stuff are important, but they're not the one and only thing that's going to get you the job. So try and get your mindset into being able to do multiple things at once. Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. And finally, Kim, with the last word.
I would say be kind to yourself. There's an awful lot of junior and entry-level people looking for jobs, and there aren't that many jobs. There will be. This industry is only growing. We've just had a year with more opportunities than ever before, especially for juniors. You've got to thank Brexit, because students are going to be more valuable now to companies who can't sponsor visas. So there's never been a better time to be looking for a job. But be kind to yourself. You know, I know some companies, I think there was a junior designer role at Playground a couple of years ago. They got 500 applications in the first 3 days. I don't imagine for a moment that all of those people could do that job. So be kind to yourself. Don't apply for things that you can't do. And if you get rejected, try and get feedback, so that you get some honest, constructive feedback on what your work is, what you were missing. It could be something you absolutely didn't expect. Don't give up. If this is what you really want to do, don't give up, but be kind on yourself if it isn't going your way. If you're going to get in, you're going to get in. Just keep going. But don't beat yourself up if you don't get an interview for the first job that you go for. It could take a while, but you will end up where you're meant to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everybody's time. There was just lots of wonderful bits of advice there. Really appreciated. Just to remind everyone, this event is actually part of Games Careers Week. You can go to gamescareersweek.org. We've got a whole bunch of different events happening over the next few days until Thursday, I think is the last day. You can go to gamescareersweek.org. Or you can also go to intergames.org as well, which has just popped up too, which is a wonderful resource full of careers information about how to get into the games industry. And please do reach out to us if you have any further questions at all. Head to our Discord now. So go to intergames.org/Discord. It's a fantastic space full of thousands of people who are all probably in your shoes. So, you know, looking for their first role in industry, as well as people who've been in the industry for years and years and years that you can ask questions to and get advice from. And speaking of that, directly after this, as I say, most of our panel will be available in Discord, in the Discord channel for this event. Which I think is just called How to Prepare for Your First Role in Games. So pop in there, ask some questions. I know there's already some questions there. Just once again, I'd like to thank everyone so much for coming and talking to me a bit today about this. And yeah, hope this is super useful to you in your search for a role in games. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, bye.